Record?
Yes, I got it.
Ah, perfect. That's perfect. So now we're going. Now we're good. Okay, so I'm just gonna minimize you guys over here so I can start the presentation. Are we all ready?
Yes, and I would just like to ask people to maybe turn off their video and you can turn it back on at the end when we get to the Q&A, and also to mute your microphones so that the speaker's not interrupted by barking dogs or ringing telephones.
That sounds great. And so my screen is perfect. Okay,
Yes,
great.
it is. Yeah.
Great. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting the Canadian Irish Migration Preservation Network and myself, Kelly O'Rourke, for giving this presentation. And we miss you, John Hashey. We wish you were here. So what CIMPN is, we're a not-for-profit organization where we actively seek to protect Irish historic landmarks, and we seek effective ways to investigate, cultivate, communicate, inspire Irish history. We want to enhance this connection between Irish ancestors and the global Irish community, and this is one way of doing it, is sharing with you guys. We also want to create collaborative associations dedicated to preservation and awareness of the Irish migration story. The first thing I want to talk about is put together a little. Do you see that? Okay, sorry. A lot of people talk about, why did the Irish come here? And so I just put together a really quick timeline because everybody says the Irish Troubles. Well, what were the Irish Troubles? So in the 1600s, we had the land confiscation, and that's when the Irish Crown took claim over the Irish land, and they redistributed the land to the English and the Scottish settlers. In 1700, we had the penal laws. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. And those were laws that discriminate against the Irish Catholics, and it limited their rights. It prohibited them from owning land, practicing their faith, and also sending their kids to school. As well, we had the 1798. That was the failed rebellion. We also had the economic struggles. The potato famine of 1847 wasn't the first famine that they had. They also had one in the early 1800s. Because they had the reliance on only one single crop, it caused Ireland to experience great periods of poverty before the 1847 tragedy. The Napoleonic Wars in 1803 also set in motion political tensions, and many Irish people left at that time as well. There were Irish soldiers that were fighting both with the British government and also, or with the Crown, and also with the French. In 1819, we see, now I'm jumping into Canada here. In 1819, we find the first Irish immigrant recorded in the area of what we're talking about today, not in Quebec. They were there starting in the 1600s, believe it or not, but in the area we're talking about, in the St. Columban area, our first recorded baptism was in 1819. So we're talking about pre-famine. Then in 1837 we had the Canadian Rebellion, and that was the Upper and Lower Canada Rebellion. And in 1845 was the beginning of the Great Famine. So that, in a nutshell, were the Troubles. When you hear of the Irish Troubles, that's what we're talking about. The first really big wave of Irish immigration happened around 1815, sorry. Many were farmers, many settled in the waterfront in Quebec City and Montreal, and many found work on the Lachine Canal and other rural communities in Quebec. Where is St. Columban? St. Columban is located about 67 kilometers northwest of Montreal. You can see in the yellow triangle here, I highlighted it for you. That is the land that was put aside for a certain number of Irish settlers. The land is located within the unceded territory of Indigenous people. And when the French first came, when it was Nouveau France, the seizure of the Indigenous lands was colonized first by the French and then by the British. And you can see here, I circled where they put wasteland of the crown, which it really wasn't. It belonged to the Indigenous people. The Seigneury of Saint-Sulpice, these were when the French first came in the 1600s, in the late 1600s, we had the Jesuits, we had the Recollects, and we had the Sulpicians. They were Irish Catholic, not Irish, sorry, they were Catholic priests. And during the France's colonization of Nouveau France, the Sulpicians aimed to assimilate the native people. And convert them to Catholicism. Now, the difference between the Gentlemen of Saint Sulpice and the Recollects and the Jesuits is they did not take a vow of poverty. So they had huge parcels of land. They owned the island of Montreal and some of its surrounding territories. So that's where it began. And in the Treaty of Paris, the signed in 1763, the transfer land that was controlled by New France to the British, the religious institutions, including the Sulpicians, had their rights and land holdings protected by the treaty. So the first land grants of the Sulpicians in the area that we're talking about was granted in 1819. So that is where the Irish in St. Columban acquired their land. They came first to Montreal, and they were at the Church of the Recollect, and the parishioners or the priests there noticed the increase in the Irish that were attending mass, and it was at this point when the immigration started to swell that the Montreal started becoming, and the parishes became overpopulated. They were looking for ways to help out the parishioners. So they said, well, the majority of them are Irish, they're farmers. We need this land right here in this triangular part here in the yellow populated. So, why don't we start handing out parcels of land to the Irish? And that's what they did. So, but it wasn't the only area. So St. Columban is right here. Okay. You also had, now St. Columban only officially became a parish in 1836, but people started settling there in 1819. So they were settling in all the areas that I've marked here in pink, and here's St. Columban. So they were being baptized as early as 1819 in these other areas, even though they belonged to the parish of St. Columban. And they used to travel by horse and buggy
Listening.
to get to St. Scholastic and the neighboring parishes. So St. Columban, this is what St. Columban looks like. This, and it still is the chapel the church is still there. The cemetery is still there. The first part of the cemetery is this, and this is predominantly what we're talking about. We're talking about the historic part of the cemetery, which I've created a box around here in yellow. So the land was donated by Mary Phelan in 1832 for the construction of the parish. To replace what they had was a makeshift chapel. The historic part of the cemetery the land was donated by Edward Elliot between 1829 and 1834. And then in this part here, now the cemetery today, it occupies this whole square rectangular here. This was started in 1937 by land that was donated by Gerald Phelan. So in the pictures here, you see this first schoolhouse. And just to understand that first thing that they did when they settled in this area is they got a teacher, because they were not allowed, they were deprived of that when they were in Ireland, and they were suppressed by the British rule. And these were two pictures of the presbyteries. So that is what we're looking at. Why cemeteries? Now, this cemetery, it's been here since. Pardon me?
I just wanted to know if other people are seeing your screen, because I'm seeing one of our members on full screen instead of you.
I hope you can see my screen.
I can't.
I think maybe it's okay. So go into your, I think you might just have, there's a section on your screen. There's a display. I think you just have the display incorrect.
Okay.
Okay, you just have to go to the top and you see about 4 little squares. So the cemeteries hold valuable historical and cultural information, and they serve a link to the past. And this cemetery is especially important because a lot of the Irish that settled there in 1819 and on are the people that built Montreal and built the area. So it's really important for us to preserve this cemetery because these are the people that contributed greatly to the growth and the cultural, what is now Montreal. The absence of many of the markers connecting these early settlers to the history of the community was the first thing that we noticed. I am a descendant of the Irish in this community, as well as Kate and a lot of other people. And one of the things that we noticed that there was a lot of blanks in what used to be a very full cemetery. So we became alarmed at this. Now, one of the things that we couldn't do when we first got there was read the stones. And by reading the stones, it helps us a great deal with genealogy profiling. And also the Irish Catholics in this particular cemetery, and I know in a lot of others, they buried their families in clusters. So it gave a great deal of information as to who is related to who. And it enhances also, even with the material that was used in the stones and the monuments, the carvings, it gives a great deal reflection of the culture at the time. So this is how we found. We had heard that a lot of the stones at the cemetery had been removed, and we went looking for them. And this is the state we found them in. We found them in back of the church. They had been removed and thrown into the bushes, and this is how we found them. And we were actually really shocked and dismayed when we found this. This was in 2005 when we first went in there and we found them in this state of deteriorating headstones and broken headstones. So we got a couple of trucks and we got permission from the Fabrique, which is the wardens of the parish. We picked up every single stone, and I actually stored them in my backyard for 2 years, much to the chagrin of my husband. But when you're a researcher and a genealogist, you go to any length. So what we did was we raised money and we brought these stones back into the cemetery, and we erected 3 walls. And we put the cemetery, this is the diagram of what it looks like, the aerial view of what it looks like. So the stones are in the walls on both sides. So this is what we did with those deteriorating stones. Is we cleaned them, we researched every single piece, and we made sure when we put the pieces together, they went with the right family. So that's what we did with those stones. So this is one of the other problems we had, was there was no map of this existing historic part of the cemetery. So I created one. And I created one using, comparing with existing monuments, with the parish records, historical documents, maps, newspapers, genealogy research, photos, interviews with people, and gathering all this information, I was able to create a map of the historic part of the cemetery. That was in the yellow square that I showed you at the beginning. So the next phase of this is we're going to look for, there's 157 monuments that are still missing. We don't know where they are, but we have an idea of where they're located. So we're going to, we have a group of volunteers that go in with pikes, and we just test because we know that a lot of the stones were buried, and we've already unearthed a few, so it's actually quite exciting. So this is what we've done so now we have this map. And our next thing is to create an interactive map. So what you're going to do, these little pink circles, what you see here is, okay, say you're looking for Gerald Phelan. Well, Gerald Phelan's circle is here. Everything about Gerald Phelan will come up here, and then you follow Gerald Phelan from when he left Ireland to Montreal to St. Columban and where his family went afterwards. So it's a very exciting, it's a very big project, but it's going to help a lot of people in terms of finding their families, making connections, and also preserving the integrity of the cemetery and the history of the Irish that helped build the communities in the Montreal area. So this is us unearthing one of the stones that had been buried. What we did this year is we had Heritage Day on July 30th. We had dancing. We want to educate the community, which is now predominantly French. There's hardly any Irish people left there, as to what the gem they have in the cemetery. The wall is deteriorating. It's been there for a while, and we need to raise $30,000 to repair it. We have succeeded in raising the money and straightening and cleaning the vulnerable stones that were in the cemetery. And we're also continue, as you see in the picture here, unearthing and remounting the monuments. And Project 4 is just ongoing. We continue to clean the monuments, and it's, volunteer based. So, we don't clean them to make them new. And we clean them to reveal the inscriptions and also the beautiful carvings on each monument. We also have to determine which ones need to be straightened, cracked, pieced together. And not all stones can be cleaned because we could do more damage than help. So we have to be very careful. We have to be very respectful. And we have to, because we do not want to damage the stones. So one of the things you'll see when you go into cemeteries is this green stuff. This is all atmospheric pollution, and that can be clean. Now, many of the stones in this cemetery were made from a local material. Many were limestone, sandstones, and then granite came later, and white marble. Here's our kit. If all this information is going to be available to you guys. I'm going to put a handout in the chat and you can download it later. So this is the material we use. It's all biological, it's all safe, and this is what it does. So this is a before picture of the grave marker of John Patrick Carroll. We couldn't even read it, and this is what it looks like afterwards. So there's a huge difference, especially when you're doing your genealogy profiling. It helps a great deal. And again, we have the Burkes. This is the before and after. And the Williams, we couldn't even read a thing down here. Now look how beautiful that is. The beautiful Celtic cross that we have in the cemetery. And here's some of the cracks that we repaired. This was done in another cemetery. Someone had just cemented it, but what we use is we use an epoxy. Now it's just drying here, and you can buy the clear epoxy and paint powder, and you can create it so that it's almost the same color as the stone. So you're not going to have this look that you have here where you actually erase some of the writing. This is us. Here's one of the stones that we found. Many of the stones were like this. Some of them are in the wall, as you know. And this is us cleaning and repairing a lot of the stones in the cemetery. We do a lot of this too, the straightening. We go down, we use car jacks, believe it or not. We dig down, we straighten them out. This is a 2-3 person job. You do not do this on your own. These stones are very heavy and they can be very dangerous. This is an after picture of a cleaned and straightened stone. It's actually really exciting when you see the before and after pictures. So a lot of the older stones are in tablet form and a lot of them are falling over. So these ones are a little easier to straighten. These bigger ones are a little more difficult, but you could see the difference right there when we straighten them and when we clean them. This one is one of the first stones in the cemetery. These are some of the founding Irish settlers here. This is the Phelan family. The cross is gone. We don't know where it is, but we had to stabilize it for a year by bracing it with the wood till we could raise the money and get some professionals in there to straighten it. This was a really hard one to do. There was a company that we hired from Hawkesbury that came in with big equipment. And that was the only way we could do that. We needed to get some professional people in there. Some of the smaller ones we can do with our volunteers, but not these big ones. They're too fragile. And what a difference, though. We're pretty excited about that. These are some of the guys that we're indebted to, Stuart Cass and Leslie Parker. Without these guys, we couldn't have done half the stuff we did. We have videos that you guys can access on our website, on our YouTube, where we explain how we do everything. So this is Timothy Kelly. I showed you this stone that was sitting up against the tree. Stuart and Leslie came in together and they pieced it all together. They created a new foundation for it. They reset it in the foundation after setting it for a day. We cleaned it. And here's Timothy back in his spot. You could see it's all nice and clean. Now, while we were doing that, you see this little, you see this over here? So we had to dig the hole. We knew Timothy was here because we actually had a picture of the stone before it broke. So we knew exactly where it went. So we were digging around here and we found this. Just the bottom piece of a headstone. So we were looking to see, okay, all it says on it is erected by her father, J. McGar. So you think, you couldn't figure out who this is. Well, just using this information that we could decipher here, we figured out that this belonged to Mary Ann Williams, and her parents were George Williams and Mary Kelly. No, sorry, the stone belonged to Mary McGar, daughter of James McGar and Mary Ann Williams. And all the cemetery stones around that were of George Williams, Mary Kelly, and all the family that were related to her. So that's how we figured out it was Mary Ann McGar. So this is a close-up of what the wall looks like. Now, unfortunately, the next photo is what's happened over time is some of the bricks, because water had gotten infiltrated in behind, and some of the bricks imploded. So we need to raise about $30,000 because we can't just replace the bricks. We actually have to take the whole wall down and rebuild it. I can't even begin to tell you how saddened we were by this because it took a lot of work to have it done in 2005. So to date, we've got 33 headstones that have been cleaned, 46 remain to be cleaned, 10 are prepped for cleaning, 19 have been straightened, and 10 are to be straightened or repaired. So we've done since last year, this is how much we've done so far. So you can go to our YouTube channel and you can see all the videos that we've put together for free of charge for other people that are looking into doing similar work. And also we've got 4 videos on that, and Stuart, and they're bilingual. So if you're French, you're English, it doesn't matter. All the videos are bilingual. And why do we care? We care because we believe in preserving the past. We believe in studying history and genealogy. We can help further future generations preserve our ancestors' narratives and memories. So in doing these genealogy profiling and everything that we're doing, that's exactly what we're hoping to keep the memory of our ancestors alive. We want to educate the communities about the historical and cultural significance of the buildings. The very, very sad thing. This was the first schoolhouse, and it sat right here in the corner. This was us in 2005, standing outside this schoolhouse. And not even 5 years ago, they pulled it down and they erected an Ultramar. So it's pretty sad when you see things like that happening. We see our culture and our history disappearing for the sake of a gas station. And that's another, really important reason why we have to educate people. It wasn't done maliciously, it was just people don't know. And that's the importance of us educating people. So, in conclusion, what we hope to do is we want to continue our research and storytelling to share the fascinating past of our ancestors, our Irish ancestors. We want to highlight the significance and the contributions of the Irish immigrants who came here. We want to actively preserve and protect our historic landmarks. And we want to seek effective ways to cultivate, communicate, reach out, share our stories, and also work on the connections between our Irish ancestors here and the global Irish community. I just got back from Ireland and I made a lot of really good connections there. And we're hoping to, like I said, when we do our interactive map, to connect with some of the cemeteries there as well. So we want to create our collaborative associations with other organizations that also share our dedication to the preservation and awareness of the Irish migration story. So I want to thank you all for having us. Check out our website. I have it up here, and I'm going to turn off my PowerPoint, open the floor for questions and answers, and in the time, I'm going to also put in the chat some handouts that you can download for yourselves. I love this by Stephen Leacock. I never realized that there was history close at hand, beside my very own home. I did not realize that the old grave that stood among the brambles at the foot of our farm was history. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Kelly. That's certainly a very interesting presentation. And I think a lot of the local cemeteries in our area are in bad shape. So the videos that you have showing us how to take care of them will certainly be put to use.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're happy to share.
I think I just saw that John Hashey is online.
Yes, I am.
Hey, John.
Where are you?
There.
Great.
Where are you tonight, John?
I'm out. I don't know if you can see it. I'm on a ship.
We see it.
We've just left Costa Rica.
Oh, wonderful.
On our way to Guatemala, and trying to avoid a bad storm. But that's beside the point. So I got most of the presentation. I thought it was, I was hoping to be able to catch it, but I had a hard time getting enough internet services. But I did, and Kelly, I'm pretty sure you must have talked a little bit about your mapping. I'm also interested in the fact that cemeteries are not only historical sites. They have actually become political sites in my mind, because if they're ignored, we're ignoring part of our history, and therefore part of the community that had a political voice is being eliminated. So I think, I think it's really important to ensure that those sites do not get eliminated.
No, I agree. And that's one of the reasons that this project is so important to us, because it's at risk. And as I showed you in one of the pictures, some of the historic buildings in the area have already been demolished. And in Quebec, there by law, the Quebec government, after 99 years, they can do, if the plot is not owned by a family or claimed by a family, they can do whatever they want with it. And that's what's happening now, is some of the historic part of the cemetery is being repurposed. So we're trying to put a halt to that. There's a little catch in that 99 year law. So if you by chance own a plot and or claim it, and St. Columban is willing to do that, but they're only going to give it to you for 25 years. But as long as it's opened, as long as you say there's more room in that plot, say it's a family plot and there's room for 1 or 2 or 3, they have to leave it open. They're not allowed to repurpose it as long as there's a spot for other people within that plot. I just found that out.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions?
Remember, most of you are on mute, so if you have a question, unmute yourself.
Yeah, Kelly.
Yes,
Could you
hi,
put
Bruce.
Hi, could you put the website up again? I didn't have time to copy it all down before you removed it.
Oh, I'm going to send it to you. What I've done is I've put my email in because for whatever reason I can't upload anything into the chat. So I've put my email there. So if anybody wants anything, I'm going to be happy to send it to you.
All right.
Fergus, could I ask you to just in the chat to put our website, and then people can also just go on our website. And if you go into videos, you can go to the YouTube and see all the videos that we have there.
We're trying our hand at recording tonight's session. So hopefully anybody that was late coming or was unable to attend tonight will be able to watch it on our website and on Kelly's website.
Yes, we're excited about that. Yeah,
It's good.
Can I tell you a good story?
I love good stories.
Thank you very much for all your work and your nice presentation. I'm from northeastern New Brunswick, and I do a lot of genealogy and history. And a gentleman from Vancouver called me and asked if he could come and go over what I had on the Dempsey clan. And his people were Protestant people who were buried in New Bandon, New Brunswick, between Bathurst and Polkshaw, where I live. So he came down, and with a friend of mine, a Dempsey, Murphy Dempsey, they went to the graveyard and they used a pole, a metal pole, and there were only a few Dempseys there, the most recent ones. So they were behind the church, and they were able to go down and hit hard 6 more grave markers. And
Oh,
some of
wonderful.
they were all small tablets, just about twice the size of an iPad and thicker, but they were under the ground. The lowest one was about 14 inches under the level of the grass. And then they went to another grave yard, and they did the same thing, and they found one more. So he was able to find his great-grandmother and many
That's
other
amazing.
relatives. Yeah. And even the people who were here, like the local people, had, because they're old, right, had no idea that these were in there. And in their graveyards map, they didn't have those on the map. Yeah, they'd been missing or unnoticeable for such a long time.
Oh, well, that's the thing is a lot of these old parish cemeteries don't have the maps anymore. I actually can, if you like, I can share with you a close-up of that map so you can see this is my working document. I'm just going to share the screen if you just abide with me. Let me know if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how I've done it. So here is the wall that I showed you, and
Yes.
I've done it so and this will be interactive, and I'm going to share it free. Like once it's all done, everybody will have access to it, and it'll take you from here to Ireland, and that's how we're going to do it. And right now, that little piece of headstone that I showed you, this is where we found it. Okay, and this is where Timothy Kelly, remember where I showed you we fixed it and remounted it? So it's Timothy, Kelly, and Mary Skeen. I always make sure I put the wife's name as well, and her maiden name, because it's so important when you're doing your research. A lot of times it's not included. So if you look at what I've done here, and I've also, it's, 11A. So everything, I have a list of it. It's easy to find. I've marked every single one of them. This is where this is the new section that they've started to put in here. But you see, there's graves here. And this is what we're doing here. This big section here, this is what we've been doing. We're getting volunteers with the pikes, and we're going in and we're finding it. And we just found this one here. The picture of us pulling it out of the ground is over here. We just pulled this over down here. Sorry. Oh, right here. Missing and buried. Now it's not. So I have to update this because we just pulled it out of the ground. So that's that's the map, a close-up of the map.
Mm.
It's really exciting.
I don't know where you were in Ireland and what cemeteries you were in. I do heritage tours to Ireland, and I just got back as well. And if you ever get the chance to go into the Abbey Struary famine graveyard near Timoleague or Clonakilty, County Cork, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Oh, we did get to the one in Mullingar, and I posted pictures of it. It's how would I say, it just takes your breath away, eh? The whole sadness of it. It was a real moment for me too when I stepped into that, and and they were so clear as to what happened, and they actually named the British soldiers that wouldn't give them food, and it was actually quite moving. And it's on our, if you go to our St. Columban Irish Descendants site, St. Columban Irish Descendants and the Canadian Irish Migration Preservation were the same thing. Okay, we just have different, we started off as the St. Columban Descendants and became because we needed to incorporate in order to be able to fundraise and get grants. So that's why we became that was the purpose. And we wanted to network, we wanted to get bigger than just the cemetery. We wanted to reach other organizations as well. So that's how we expanded from 2005 to the Descendants to now a network. So but if you go to that website, perhaps Fergus, I can ask you to just in the chat put the website, and if you scroll down on the discussion, you'll find all the pictures of that cemetery and all the wording that they put there too. It was just incredible. But Reardon, I would love to have your email because I was told about you and I was very excited to meet you, because I'd like to talk more about what you do, and perhaps even follow you into Ireland one time. We went everywhere in Ireland. We started in Dublin, and then we ended up in Belfast. So, and we tried the best we could to go to as many places as we could. But it's a definitely, we have to revisit. It's just too much to see.
Well, if you ever have a chance to go down to Skibbereen, the lady Terry Kearney, who does the presentation down there, is engaging. And many of the places I've been going over, except for COVID, I go once or twice a year since 2015. So I have noticed as the years are going by too that, no, 2012, that the Irish people are telling the history the way that it was. They're not hiding things like it used to be done.
That's right.
And even going to Glasnevin Cemetery in Dublin,
There,
they tell, well, the guide we had anyway, they tell the story, and they're not afraid now to tell the atrocities that happened. Like
especially in Skibbereen, yeah. That was awful, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I would love to have your email,
Sure.
and we can connect, because I'd love to speak to you more.
Sure, I'd
I
love
was
that.
really glad when I found out you were here.
Yeah. Great.
Actually, there's some comments here in our chat. The first one says, "Thank you, Kelly. Very good presentation." And somebody's looking for your email, which you did. And they wanted to know, did you have problems getting the map of the graveyard? I'm not sure.
I created it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was none. I had to make one, and that's what I used. And at one, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but I explained how I created the map. And by using the parish records, the existing monuments. And in 1991, there was a fellow by the name of Jean-Pierre Léger that actually had gone through the cemetery at the time and recorded the existing monuments. And there was, in comparison to what was there and what he had written, there were some missing. And then, of course, we found so many behind the church, and we brought them back. And that's what we've been doing, is figuring out where, through connecting them with the family clusters, where the most probably they were, and also finding those foundations, like finding that little piece of the Marianne McGar's tombstone or monument was really something, But one thing that I was taught, it's no longer a headstone if it's part of the wall. Is just a memorial, because the headstone is quite literally a headstone where it depicts where a person is buried. But the minute it's no longer there, it's not considered, even though the person's in the cemetery. It's no longer, it's their memorial stone.
I meant to ask about parish records, not
Yes.
the map. Did you have problems getting that?
No, not at all.
Oh, really? Because how did you go about it? Because we tried to get, we were trying to make a map of Nash Creek, that's in New Brunswick as well, graveyard, and I tried to get parish records, and I wasn't allowed.
Well, you weren't allowed?
No, they said they belonged to the church and the diocese.
Could you did you approach the diocese?
That's who I was speaking to, yes.
But doesn't the New Brunswick, don't they have their own website, and you can access some of those parish records? They have a pretty good website.
I can see the parish records, but we wanted to look right at them, because in this graveyard, there's the person we were looking for, there's 2 gravestones with the same name on it. And we think one of them is a mistake. It should be the person we're looking for. So we wanted to look right at the written down, not the transcribed records.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of mistakes on you'll find that as you're going through, and that's why the parish record, there's even some mistakes you come across in the parish records. But on the headstones, sometimes the year is mistake, or they write the date that they were buried and not the date that they died. So there are some discrepancies. You have to, it's human error, so you have to take that into consideration. But I mean,
Carol, I'm from Nash Creek in the summer.
Oh, hello.
Have you checked the archives in Dalhousie? All of the records in that graveyard well, I found a lot and I've walked that graveyard a lot.
Yeah,
They have all the records there at the Dalhousie Archives, which is above the library in Dalhousie.
yeah.
So I would check there. I'm surprised that the parish
Mhm.
said you couldn't look
So
at
was
the
I.
records.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised. Another person that you might want to contact is Alan Roy in Jacket River.
yeah.
He has
No,
done a
I
lot of
know
research.
Alan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know Alan. So
yeah,
check
yeah.
with him and check with the archives. I wouldn't let it go because you should be able to see
Yeah.
who's in the graveyard.
Well,
Mhm.
I have seen the records of Nash Creek and all that in the written down records, but I'd like to go to the diocese and see what they have. And they wouldn't allow it in Bathurst. Yeah, it's very
Wow.
strange.
That is strange.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd.
We have a new bishop now, that might make a difference.
well, okay.
Just saying.
That's actually not too far from the truth.
Yeah.
Does
Okay.
anyone have any other questions or?
I have just two more comments that have come in. One says,
Okay,
excellent presentation. Thank you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
the other one, I think, sums it up. It says, fascinating presentation. What a wonderful mission.
Thank you.
yeah.
It takes a lot of volunteers.
Yes, yeah.
It's a team effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just want to add something in St. Columban that might be of interest where you're talking about having the same name repeated twice. I don't know if this was common, but it drove me crazy when I was doing research in St. Columban, because a couple of families had a habit. If they had a child, and the child, let's say was
Yeah.
named John Smith and then died 3 years later, the next son that was born was named John Smith again. So often in the records, you have exactly the same
Mhm.
name with the same parents, but different dates of birth.
That's right.
It
Mhm.
can drive you nuts sometimes,
Yeah.
but anyway, I don't know
Yeah,
if the same thing went on,
yeah.
but just,
Yeah. Fergus Keys is the vice president of the Canadian Irish Migration Preservation Network, and Kate Carmichael, who's also here, sits on the board. So we have some good representation here. Does anyone have any other questions?
Are other people outside of Quebec or outside of your area of Montreal allowed to join your group?
We encourage you to join us. That's why we call ourselves a network. We'd love you to join us. We'd love you to be members. We'd love to share what we have with you and vice versa. Anything that you have, we would like to share with others as well. That's why we are networking. And that's what I had said. We are branching out. We are really trying to affiliate ourselves with other organizations because we're all in the same business of preserving history and promoting history. So yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Actually, Kate Carmichael is the person you want to contact because she's our membership person.
Well, I'm not officially the membership person, but I'm in the diaspora of the Chicago area in the US. So, but I had relatives that came from St. Columban, and that's how I got interested in the organization.
Wow.
I'd like to just, it's a different type of thing, but just to bring it in, I was able to give Kelly a document from around, I don't remember the year exactly, Kelly. I think it was like 1927 or something like that, of all of the students that went to school in Montreal, and all the Irish families that were in the West End, and she's actually working on digitizing that, and maybe she could speak a little bit about that.
That was the St. Augustine's Boys' School, and a lot of the St. Columban families who moved on to Montreal, that's where their sons went. And we've already indexed it, and we will be having that book that John Hashi so graciously donated to us up on our website as soon as we get it all organized, as well as St. Bridget's what's it called, Fergus? St. Bridget's
It was St. Bridget's home, basically. It
That's
was a
right.
refuge, mainly Irish women, built by Bishop Dowd, who was a
Oh
well-known
my.
Montrealer, and
Yep.
it was set up mainly after the event of 1847 for some of the survivors who needed help. So it was St. Bridget's Refuge. Interesting enough, in Montreal, it still operates to this day as what's in French called a CHSLD, a long-term care residence, but it's now called Father Dowd Residence. But the whole history goes back to it. And we have some of the original records of who was checked in and if and when they checked out of St. Bridget's Refuge. So it's an
Amazing.
interesting document.
Amazing. Very good.
Yeah, and if our relatives went back and forth from New Brunswick to Quebec and vice versa. My grandfather was born in Prince Edward Island, but he grew up in St. John. So the Gallaghers, so very well connected to New Brunswick. So anything that we have that we can help you with, we'd be more than happy to. So if you have any questions or you need any lookups, we'll be happy to do that. And we'd love to have you as members.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome, John. Any more questions?
I don't know if how soon I was in on your talk at the very beginning. You said that this was the area of Quebec province where the first Irish people settled?
No, it's one of the first Irish Catholic parishes, English speaking.
Okay.
So, which is really something considering it was a predominantly Francophone area. And for this small little English Irish parish, St. Columban, to crop up in all the, Saint Scholastique, Saint Benoit, Saint Augustin, Saint Sophie, and then all of a sudden St. Columban. And their first Irish priest, Etienne Blythe, was actually Irish, and he was born in Quebec. No, he was born in Quebec, but his parents were from Kilkenny. And then after that, it was Patrick Phelan, who was a Sulpician priest, and he's been given a lot of credit for founding the parish of St. Columban. But actually, I'll let Fergus go into a little bit of history about Reverend Jackson, because Etienne Blythe was a convert. He was Protestant. And one of the other priests, Richard Jackson, who also helped the Irish and Father Patrick Phelan to bring the Irish out to St. Columban, was also a convert. He actually, Fergus, I like the way you tell the story.
It's just a little bit of a funny story. And this Father Jackson was actually an American who came to Quebec. I believe he was Presbyterian, but he may have been some other denomination. He wasn't Catholic, definitely. And he decided that his goal was to come to Montreal, speak to the Catholic Bishop of Montreal, and convert him to his, whatever it was, Presbyterian. So he meets with the bishop for an hour or 2 hours, apparently. Nobody knows exactly what went on, but in the end, it wasn't Father Jackson that converted the bishop to his religion. It was the bishop that converted Father Jackson to Catholicism. So he went to the seminary for a few years and emerged as a Catholic priest. He was very much involved in St. Columban. And sadly, he actually gave up his life in 1847 when the Irish arrived in Montreal, the famine Irish, and were dying at the fever sheds of typhus and malnutrition. And this Father Jackson, who was older or elderly at the time, went to provide them care and comfort and caught typhus and gave up his own life. But I always found it interesting that it didn't work really the way that he had planned when he came to Montreal.
Yeah, St. Columban has quite the colorful history. In 1837, we had a fair amount of Captain O'Reilly, Hugh O'Reilly, Samuel O'Rourke, Daniel Phelan, John Phelan, John Ryan, all these guys supported Papineau and Edmund Bailey O'Callaghan in the 1837-1838 rebellion, the Patriot Rebellion in Quebec. So it's quite, and Upper and Lower Canada, but it's quite a colorful past that we have. And we have we found Hugh O'Reilly's broken stone behind the church, and it's back in the cemetery. So it's another great reason to preserve the cemetery. The history is just incredible.
Was
But
the
it-
first, oh, sorry, was the first priest from Kilkenny, was that Father Jackson?
No, the first priest at St. Columban was
Yes.
Etienne Blythe. His parents were from Kilkenny.
Oh, Blythe.
Blythe, and they were originally Protestants, and they were converts.
Yeah.
But
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to
Curtis.
say that one of the priests that was very instrumental in founding St. Columban, wasn't the priest of St. Columban, was instrumental in founding it, as Kelly said, was Patrick Phelan. And he was indeed from Kilkenny, Patrick Phelan.
Yeah.
And he also took his training in Ireland and then in France, actually,
That's right.
somewhere, I think he was in Boston when the Catholic Bishop of Montreal asked if he would come to Montreal. Because he had trained in France, he spoke actually English, French, and Gaelic. And the Catholic Church in Montreal had all these Gaelic-speaking Irish guys hanging out that they didn't really know what to do with. So that's one of the reasons he brought up Patrick Phelan, who was a priest, and then he eventually became the Bishop of Kingston, Ontario. And so the founder was indeed from Kilkenny, but not Father Blythe, who was the first official parish priest of St. Columban.
And it's interesting to know that a lot of there were some Catholic families in Ireland that not everybody was poor. They did have some money, but they had to educate their children or their teenagers, adults, whatever, in France. There was a University of Ireland in France. So a lot of them did speak French because Trinity College was close to them. At that time, it was male only and Protestants, so they had to go elsewhere for their education. So people like Edmund Bailey O'Callaghan, who came over to Canada, to Montreal, and who was a supporter of Papineau, he spoke French. So, and when he took off to New York after the rebellion, he also learned to speak Dutch because he rewrote all the books there in New York. So,
were the majority of people in St. Columban from County Carlow, or is there quite a smattering of places where they came from?
Quite a smattering. There's a lot from Kilkenny, and most of them were related to Patrick Phelan, so he was bringing his own family in there. But you have Westmeath, you have Carlow, you have Cork, you have a lot of different areas that they came from. Even a couple from the north, which was surprising to me. There's one or two that are buried in the cemetery that are Protestant, but they were buried in the cemetery.
There's a community here called Pokmush. It's near Tracadie, New Brunswick, and many of the people in that community were from Kilkenny.
Yeah. Are there any more questions?
Okay, well, maybe being no more
You have,
questions,
sorry.
all we can do, Kelly, is really thank you for this presentation. Really, really interesting. And hopefully the recording works and we can get it on our website.
That's wonderful. And if you could send it to us, we'd really appreciate it.
Yes.
And we will put it on our website as well. And on behalf of the Canadian Irish Migration Preservation Network, if you could say that in one mouthful, great. We'd like to thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Gorov Mahagut.
I can't say that. I wish I could. Slante.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Kelly.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Night. Take care.
Okay, so maybe we'll close up. We don't have anything else on the agenda this evening. So we'll just have to figure out how to get the recording activated.
So you save it to your desktop.